clearly there are two aspects to manufacturing. One is to seeing India as the home market, the size of the market, and to see the world, the globe as a market size. So where do you think that really India should focus on, given the strengths that it has?
I think manufacturing is a critical sector for the future of India. You look at the statistics over the last several years, the amount of manufacturing on a GDP basis has actually declined, which basically tells me the potential here is so significant. So, as we all know, the government has a mindset of, make here in India, and I would almost back it up and I would say, how do you get the innovation on the front end? So the develop, design, not just make, is a big part of that. And when you look at our report, it really gets into having that type of innovation, drive the manufacturing sector. And we certainly think that potential very much exists here in India.
Do you think India has an advantage over other emerging economies to be the factory of the world?
Look, I look at the BRICS, over the last 5 to 10 years, and 10 years ago, it was a pretty consistent story, as we all know. Things were moving in the right direction. All had significant growth, results, trending all upwards is a way to describe it. Today, you look around and you see, how disparate those countries really are from an economic performance standpoint. In fact, the only two that have positive growth, as you know, basically are China and India today. And so, and quite frankly, I think that's to be expected. I think as these economies continue to develop on their journey, you're going to start to see different trajectories of how they need to remake themselves and refocus, each of which are going through their own transformation as we speak. But when I step back and I look at India, I still look at a country that has incredible potential, a very positive population when you look at the demographics, in terms of those, the aging of India versus some of the other, of the BRICS. I look at, the education capabilities here that exist in this country, language, democracy, a lot of really, really positive foundational kinds of attributes, the way we would describe it. So we at PwC certainly see India as just having tremendous potential, and that's why we're so positive on the country and so encouraged by the way the government's approaching, its early days. So this is, from a PwC standpoint, the fastest growing firm in our network, which we're very proud of. And we think that represents the tremendous potential that exists here in India.
If you look at U.S., the shale gas, energy discovery related revival of industry, which is happening or is to grow further, what could be its impact on emerging economies?
Well, I think it's an interesting development, to say the least. When you have an economy as large as the U.S. And you talk about that particular economy being energy independent, I should say, no one would have ever thought that 5 years ago. And so the discovery of shale, which is clearly technology oriented, which demonstrates what can be done when you're making the right type of investments in R&D and use of technology, has the ability to transform that whole industry and, quite frankly, change the dynamics of that sector. When you look at the price of a barrel of oil today versus what it was just a year ago, I don't think many of us would have been predicting that. And so, again, it points to the need to continually invest in R&D, to use technology, to really think about new ways to do things. Because quite frankly, 10 years ago, no one was even talking about shale gas or shale oil. And when you think about how quickly that's been developed to really transform the industry, it's pretty amazing.
So you have countries showing signs of revival. You have Japan probably slowing down growth. You have probably Europe again not showing the kind of growth which one would anticipate if you are seeing Europe as an export destination. So how should India prioritize its policies to see? Should be a way towards more cooperation, or to make sure that it gets more entry into the market? Or
well, to me, one of the interesting issues that I think we just all collectively need to focus on is, coming out of the financial crisis, the one thing that I think has been very clear is, how interconnected this economy really is, the global economy, and you just see that, day in and day out, and so you're absolutely right. When you look at Europe today, it's definitely slowing. Some of the results that came out of Germany just most recently would suggest that their economy, which is clearly an export-driven economy, is slowing, not just because of their exports to Europe, but also to China, one of their big trading partners, is slowing. So you can expect to see, the European area continuing to experience slow growth for a period of years, is the way we would look at it. Having said that, there's other parts of the world that just offer tremendous potential and opportunity. And to go back to my point about how this economy is so connected, it really does place a huge premium on ensuring that a country like India, has to be globally competitive with best in class, no matter where that is, wherever that exists. And if you have that kind of focus and you have that kind of orientation, I think you can really compete on a global scale. And that's got to be the mindset that business has here in India. That has got to be the mindset that the government has to really stimulate the kinds of policies that will allow that development to really take place. And if that is the case, then I think that potential can be realized.
Okay. And if you see, Prime Minister Modi is one of the Indian leaders who have probably approached the global community in much faster manner than any other Prime Minister of recent past. And we are seeing its repercussions in various ways. I mean, the way how Pakistan interacts, the way how China sees the development. So, do you think that geopolitical interactions will play a major role, much bigger than what it used to be in the time of the previous government? And have you given any suggestions in that manner as to what has to be the government's approach to ensure the kind of growth which you have been forecasting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the one thing that's very clear is the role that government plays today in the global economy is much greater than what it ever has been. I think you just have to look at all parts of the world, and you see the engagement, in the post-financial crisis environment, in terms of, governments, and their policies and decisions impacting, what's happening with the economic environment. So I think that involvement is absolutely, critical. And what the business community is looking for is they're looking for a message around stability, clarity, consistency is the best way I can describe that. If you're looking at one country versus another from an investment standpoint, risk and return analysis that typically get done around that, this is one of those critical issues. How consistent is the particular government? Will the agreements that are put in place today, will they be here 10, 15 years from now? You think about infrastructure investment, great example, right? That doesn't happen in the next 2 years, 3 years. That happens over a 20, 25-year period. So businesses, want to have that comfort, is the best way I can describe it, of having clarity of rule of law, having consistency of regulation, knowing how to play the rules of the game. That's really, really important. And I think governments have a big role to play in that process. And I think early days, but Modi and his cabinet have been very positive from that standpoint, sending out a very strong message that that'll be a platform that the international community can really count on as we go forward here. So I'm very encouraged by that.
And if you see the economic policies of the government, they have been taking forward the policies which probably the previous government has been, working on. So there is no reversal as such, no significant reversal, which has brought in cheers from the international community. In fact, they have all been talking about that, yes, speeding up of things that have been in the offing. So to that extent, yes, there is a change. But beyond that, do you think that there is anything dramatic that one needs to look at from the government?
Look, I think it's early days, but the proof of the pudding is going to be, 6 months, 12 months down the road here. how has the discussion around policies been translated in terms of execution? And I think that's absolutely critical. We referenced earlier the recent agreement between the U.S. and India, in terms of the trade issues that, quite frankly, have stood in the way of moving forward with that agreement reached in Bali. To me, that's a very positive, a very strong signal to the rest of the world that India knows what its role is and wants to play in a very different way. And I think the more those types of developments can occur here, in the next 12 months, I think that will really begin to establish the kind of foundation that we're talking about.
One final question. I was told that this is your 4th visit this year, and you've mentioned that the India PwC is one of the fastest growing countries for the organization. So how do you see this development? Which are the areas wherein you find that for a global consultancy which is becoming more attractive and where there is huge demand happening?
Well, what's interesting about that is when we look at PwC India, we're experiencing tremendous growth in all of our lines of business. So, whether it's our assurance business, whether it's our tax business or our consultancy businesses, all are driving, that type of growth. And quite frankly, it's in direct response to what's happening in the marketplace. On our audit side, assurance side, clients are looking for, more types of attestation services as they enter the capital markets, as they make acquisitions, as they continue to expand not only here in India but outside of India. On the tax side, again, the complexity of laws, rules, regulations, helping our clients navigate through all of that is an important part of it. And in consultancy, quite frankly, when you think about the type of transformation that many of the companies here in India are going to go through, as we help them not only look at strategy, but help them deal with the execution of that strategy, just tremendous opportunities for us. And so we're very optimistic that we at PwC have the types of services, the capabilities, services that really will be responsive and help our clients really achieve their growth potential as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.